The endgame of the Red Bull Formula One team's now public internal war is tough to understand. The always there father of Max Verstappen has basically demanded that team head Christian Horner stand down. If not, Max will look to go elsewhere, probably taking Helmut Marko and/or Adrian Newey with him. How can this end well? Horner's investigation by Red Bull's parent business, scrutiny by senior F1 executives, and the subject of a devastating suspected leak were all major issues on their own. But when Jos Verstappen expressed his worries that Red Bull Racing would be ripped apart if Horner remained in control, the situation escalated significantly, essentially dividing the squad into two factions: the Horner front and the Verstappen front. Red Bull Racing, however, claims this is not the case. "There are no issues here, the team is united and we are focused on racing," is the team's first statement since Jos's comments were published. Horner may continue to have overwhelming support on the track and within the ranks. However, if battle lines have been formed, it is less important to count the number of people on each side than to know who is there. Horner appears to be supported by the Milton Keynes-based F1 empire he has overseen since the creation of Red Bull Racing, as well as the Tayuvidya family, which owns the majority of the company. But who is behind Jos? Is he speaking on behalf of Team Verstappen? Is this also true for his son? Where does Helmut Marko stand in relation to Red Bull GmbH's Austrian contingent, which includes executive Oliver Mintzlaff? What about Mark Mateschitz, the son of late Dietrich Mateschitz, a Red Bull co-founder? Recently, all have been said to be opposing Horner. After all, being a lone voice, as Jos has stated, would be a highly dangerous approach. It's not simply any casual observer's take on Horner. It's not even your typical racing dad. According to the BBC, Max is aware of Jos's words, which he has nothing to say about. And after Red Bull's three-time champion Max Verstappen repeatedly failed to give Horner unconditional support during a news conference in Bahrain, FIA President Ben Sulayem contacted the Dutchman and told him to openly support his boss. BBC Sport also reported that Verstappen reacted by suggesting that Ben Sulayem conduct his own investigation into the situation. So, if there is a true belief that Horner should go, who believes it? One person? Or is one individual mirroring the perspectives of others? It is not impossible for this situation to be resolved, but it appears to be exceedingly improbable at the moment. In terms of Red Bull, having to choose whether or not to endorse Horner is one step away from being positioned as Horner or Verstappen. Jos Verstappen would not be doing this if he knew it would be detrimental to Max's prospects. That wouldn't make sense. So again, is it easy? Max is committed to this team until 2028, and his camp feels Horner will be an obstacle to long-term success, or is there something else? Red Bull's team leadership has previously been called into doubt, with Jos hitting out publicly at Horner multiple times over the last couple of years. Is there a desire for a team principal who is more open to emphasizing Max? Or is it much crazier, and this is part of a much bigger, more surprise maneuver, with Team Verstappen's ultimate goal being to have an escape plan? After all, if Red Bull's engine progress for 2026 is lacking, Verstappen might be interested in pursuing certain escape ramps. Who knows what chances Horner's dismissal may create? It is said that Verstappen could leave if one of the main senior employees leave. There has already been some extremely preliminary discussion about going someplace else, such as Mercedes. That seems like a real possibility at this moment, and the subject is being addressed with his father already having talks with Wolff, and team boss Toto Wolff also did not go out of his way to dismiss it, when asked whether he might sign Verstappen as early as 2025. However, at least one individual feels Red Bull might be better off without Horner. We don't know how far this feeling extends, and what realizing it is intended to do. But what would a Red Bull Formula One team without Christian Horner look like? What would be the consequences of Max Verstappen leaving the team to drive for a rival? If given the choice, who is more essential to Red Bull, Horner or Verstappen? It all depends on whether we're talking short or long term. Verstappen would very probably continue to dominate races for the team for the next year or two, even if Horner was departing. What happens after that? The framework that delivers the cars and the race crew that drives them is not as successful as it could be by chance. Key recruiting and investment decisions, as well as solid direction and leadership, are required to fully use the financial fuel that keeps it at the forefront. A directionless squad, no matter how well funded, would eventually lose the spark required to produce cars in which even a genius-level driver like Verstappen could succeed. If Horner leaves Red Bull, it will be difficult to replace him since he has developed organically with the team as it has evolved from the little company that took over the former Stewart Grand Prix and Jaguar Racing headquarters in Milton Keynes in the mid-2000s. As the team has grown rapidly, his vision has become inextricably linked to its structure. That Milton Keynes headquarters has grown into a multi-million-pound monster with its own industrial park, including the gigantic Red Bull Powertrains engine production plant, as well as the sibling RB team's technical base. Horner's job no longer entails managing a few hundred staff and controlling operations from the pit wall on race weekends. He is in charge of a couple of thousand people and investments totaling hundreds of millions of pounds. He's effectively become a highly successful CEO while maintaining his function as team leader. His personality has given the place its tone, and he has maintained it even as his role has grown with the team. It's just not possible to unstitch everything and replace him like for like. There seemed to be little equipped with a skill set big enough to replace Horner on the short term, and despite its size, Red Bull Racing is a totally focused, freewheeling race squad that is agile and adaptive, with a minimal structure. The late Red Bull co-owner Dietrich Mateschitz allowed Horner the flexibility to build and administer it in this manner, which has been a key factor in making it an appealing location for Adrian Newey to work for so long. However, with the Austrian billionaire's death in late 2022, there was always the issue of whether the team could maintain its potent mix of simplicity and financial strength. Current Red Bull sporting director Jonathan Wheatley would be a safe set of hands on the racing side, but taking on all of Horner's responsibilities would be an unreasonable request and outside of his area of competence. Someone from that world would have to take on the business aspect of the organisation. It appears that the Austrian corporate parent business, Red Bull GmbH, would be dedicated in filling that post. This would mean that the racing team would most certainly be less autonomous from the firm than it was during the Mateschitz-Horner years, which raises serious concerns about its long-term viability. All of this has an influence on the quality of persons who will be drawn to a team in the long run, as well as the potential future of those who are already there. With such a huge change, it is possible that the core technological staff may be persuaded to go elsewhere. Competitors will be vying for the talent if Horner leaves. Not just the technical crew, but perhaps even Verstappen. Despite being committed until the end of 2028, there are whispers that he might transfer to Mercedes as early as next year to replace Lewis Hamilton. This might simply be a tactic by whoever is pressing for Horner's departure to get someone at Red Bull GmbH to act or risk losing Verstappen. However, in Formula One, unexpected things may happen. Jos Verstappen began by using the interests of Red Bull and Mercedes as negotiating chips. Red Bull was lucky to acquire Max's services, given there was always the prospect of him leaving to Mercedes throughout the years of supremacy. The power dynamic between team and driver has always been notably lopsided in this scenario. Without Horner or Verstappen, Red Bull Racing would suffer significantly. But what would a Horner-led Red Bull look like without Verstappen? If the core technical personnel were retained, it would undoubtedly remain formidable. However, it would be hard to replace Verstappen on a 1-1 basis. What appears to be clear today is that Red Bull Racing, as it once was, with the Horner-led team and Verstappen working together to demolish the opposition, is no longer how it will be in the future. It may be anticipated to dominate for a while, but in the long run, it's tough to see this as anything other than the start of the end of its F1 domination. And it's just for us to wait and see who leaves first, Horner or Verstappen. What are your thoughts? Are Red Bull falling apart? And is Verstappen going to switch teams in the near future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.